for anyone best for having us here today. So I'm Mario and I'm from Cala Group, and today we're having a chat with you just a bit more about, first of all, again, I'm sure you've all heard of Cala, but again, a wee bit about Cala and then the importance of us meeting net zero targets and the challenges that it brings for us as house builders. And I'll finish on with what Cala's approach is to all of that. So, just briefly a bit about Cala. So we started in about 1875, where we were primarily just a small house builder in Scotland. From then went on to be one of the premium house builders with 8 regions, 5 in England and 3 in Scotland. Last year in 2021 we completed about 3,000 legal completions, and we're now predicting to rise that to about 4,000 by end of year 24-25. In terms of our as well, our operational emissions, we are about 10,000 tonnes a year. So, in terms of Cala, for us there, what we would say why housing is important to net zero. Again, the commitment for climate change says only about 20% energy emissions come from housing, but as a house builder, we need to understand that that includes a lot of different impacts, not just including things like your energy, your body carbon. We've got that responsibility to ensure that we are thinking about after the house is built as well, especially as well at the construction stage, where that is where a lot of the carbon intense comes from. So, in terms of new housing, they only do contribute to about 3% of housing stock at the moment. But again, this is in terms of low carbon heating, where Cala should be trying to lead the way in terms of housing opportunity us as house builders to make sure that we are putting in technologies that are benefiting for the future. So, the main challenges that we get at Cala, I'll go over a few of them just now there. So, the first ones I would say would be the ambiguous and conflicting policy legislation and just the differences between each individual house builder. Obviously, in terms of targets, for example, with the legislation of no gas by 2024 with the transition period in Scotland for 3 years, that again leaves a ambiguous figure for every individual house builder to do what they want to do in that period of time. This is a big challenge for us in terms of not every house builder is doing the same thing. Everyone's doing different designs, different combinations of low carbon heating, gas, PV. It all comes down to as well in terms of house builders. Of course, there is still that factor of the bottom line of money. So land can be an issue in terms of the cost of land and competitiveness of that. Can really put a pressure on what kind of low carbon technology we want to do. Ideally, everyone would want to put in, say, for example, a heat pump into every property. But if you're spending more on the land, can you afford to do that is the question, especially when you've got maybe competitive land bid and there's some house builders that are maybe not putting in a low carbon one, they can obviously afford to go a bit higher in the land. So until that kind of level playing field comes into play, that is one of our biggest challenges at the moment. The other ones I'm going to is again sustainability concerns versus the likes of housing stock concerns. So there's always a housing shortage, everyone's looking for a house, there's never enough houses. Which means collaborating with local authorities. If you're wanting, for example, 500 houses in a plot, it's not always feasible to manage to be able to get all of that sustainability in as well in that restriction. So these are the things that we need to work in collaboration with local councils, house builders, more than maybe one house builder. I'll touch on collaboration quite a lot throughout this. When I was at Best last month, again, collaboration was all at the front of everything that they were talking about, and it's the same for the likes of house builders as well. There is still that cost premium for low carbon options in a property at the moment. This is something that will eventually come down as we move forward, but at the moment that again adds to, touching back onto the land side of things, making our, how properties be more expensive. Not everyone's going to want to do that, buy a property like that. And then also when you're moving on to the lack of customer demand and awareness, they two fit in quite together. I would say that's changing every day it's starting to get more and more people are more interested in getting those kind of technologies into their properties. In particular, recently we have had an increase of customers asking that at a buying stage as well. What kind of heating system is it? Have they got PV? So people are starting to get more interested in it, but it's still not quite there where it should be yet. In terms of what, I'll touch on that slightly later actually, in terms of what Cala can do to help with that as well. Again, touching on it again with it's all down to customers for us, of course. So we're not selling houses, we're not making money, and we don't exist after that. So the dislike of some low carbon options can be a factor as well, which is in particular for us just now. For example, in particular more in England and Scotland, our water saving measures that we put in on properties. Customers maybe don't like that, for example, like a low flow shower head. These are all different forms of the struggles that we get on a daily basis when being a house builder. And this has been touched on quite a few times already as well as grid capacity. That is one of the biggest challenges for a house builder like ourselves putting in low carbon technologies. What Cala has looked at though is ways that we can maybe balance the grid, because again it all comes into cost of putting in new substations. That's not a cheap method to put into a build, so if we are doing a plot, we can't always afford to put in a new substation for that. So we've looked at maybe other ways, such as using electric vehicle chargers to help balance the grid a bit more, so that we can try and get these low carbon technologies in and the grid can cope with it. I won't touch too much on the embodied carbon there and the operational carbon. That is more probably to do with, again, our construction side of things, where we are trying to make sure we can get as much use as less as we can for that as well. And then again, this touch on, which is again it was mentioned best quite a lot last month as well, is the supply chain issues and the skill shortages. In particular for house builders just now, I would say that is one of the biggest struggles, is getting the right people in the right place to help build the houses. In particular, it comes down to it's getting more expensive to hire certain subcontractors, or even, for example, brickies at this moment in time is a fortune to try and get one of them in as well. So these are the kind of main issues that we have as house builders at the moment, and we are trying to address these as much as we can and find ways to kind of move on from this. So Cala's approach for how we overcome this can be, we've got a few different things that we're aiming to do. So first of all, we're aiming that we will have our off gas by any new properties by 2024. So we are aiming for anything built after that date will be completely off gas. There is obviously the transition period of 3 years, but we are aiming that anything that goes into the ground from that date will be off gas. In that sense, we're planning now for it. So building warrants and design stages take 1 year in advance. We are doing that just now, so that when it comes to 2024, all our properties are hopefully, say it now, off gas. There is obviously the ones, for example, I know we'll maybe get questions on this, that there's still properties just now that are being built that are getting gas systems in. This is just due to how long it goes in terms of for your building warrants, they're 8 years in advance, your plan, you have to go through a full planning stage to redo that. So what we are doing in those situations is we're still aiming to get some form of low carbon technology in, or planning for the future. So for example, in sites that we are, including gas boilers, we're aiming to have water cylinders in as well, so it can be kind of prepared for retrofit situations. We're planning on having increased pipe sizing as well, so we can help low flow temperatures. And then sites that are getting just gas, we are planning on having PV systems in at this moment in time as well, just now, just to alleviate some of the carbon emissions as well. But from, as I said, 2024, we'll be aiming for everything that goes into the ground from that date from no gas. In terms of other kind of ambitious targets that we've got, just touching on a few as well, we're aiming for 100% diversion of waste from landfill. by the end of 2023, and really bringing that waste intensity down as well as a house builder, because that is where we have our biggest impact, is the construction phase. What I'll touch on in terms of our what we're doing for our customers. So touched on how lack of either awareness or desire for a low carbon heat technology can be there, especially with some of our buyers where that's probably not high up on their spec of things that they want from the house. We are focusing time and effort into our frontline sales team so that they have the knowledge and tools available to them, that they're able to advise when these questions come up straight away instead of giving a kind of ambiguous answer. We are investing in that team so that they can give our customers what they need for to make the choice for a low carbon technology. So we're working with them to ensure that we can do that, and again it goes back to collaboration. We want to collaborate with everyone to make sure that everyone's working on the same page, we're getting the right people in the right places, and we're there to help reduce that and turn to the low carbon networks as well. So I'll finish up with that there just now there. I'll let you probably all anxious to get to do some speed networking. And again, thanks for having me.